Jack Reacher is a smart, brutal suspense flick. Just what I'd hoped Christopher McQuarrie would make. I've seen Jack Reacher for about a month now. Just cleared the embargo stage, so let's hop right into it. Why should you give two shits about this film? Well, it is based on a series of books by Lee Child that has huge fans. Reacher is essentially the most badass military detective that there ever was. He found problems. That life is in the rear view, and now he wanders the earth like Kane from Kung Fu having adventures. Now, there's no Eastern philosophy. Jack Reacher is a bit more like John Rambo, except a lot more functional. Rambo's 0 to 60 is almost instantaneous. Jack Reacher has that kind of acceleration of violence, but he has a rather intense personal code. I'm pretty sure he belongs behind bars, but he's kinda like a whole damn A-team boiled into one very lethal Tom Cruise. Reacher is probably a bit more talkative than his character in the book, but McQuarrie's dialogue for Reacher is so choice. In fact, if you watch Cruise's Jack Reacher, efficient and precise, describe his actions, dialogue, and line of thought. Shortest distances. He keeps things explosive, even if they're barbs of the verbal side. You should not be surprised. This film is the second feature film directed by Christopher McQuarrie. The first is an intensely violent crime film called The Way of the Gun. McQuarrie is all kinds of sharp. He writes and directs like a clockwork mechanism. You always can look and marvel at the film as it comes together. It is deliberately clever, and I really respond to that in a film like this. Jack Reacher is an old-school man with internally creative way of life. He's a man like the outlaw Josie Wales. And that's a very good film to conjure when talking about this movie. You're talking ex-military badass, never able to return home, living day by day the way he lives. He's a violent man. He stays off the clock, between the shadows. He uses the Greyhound bus system to travel. No ID checks, no tracking. You get the idea. Trouble finds him. You also get the idea that people around him get hurt and move forward. Always forward. He doesn't do anything that he can't live with. Now the bad guys in this are into political corruption. They're part of the infection feeding on society. But that's getting ahead of myself. The film starts off with a sniper mass murder spree, brutal and not glorified. It isn't a cool scene, it's an oddly familiar one. The kind of thing you wouldn't be surprised to have explode in tomorrow's media. They quickly capture the guy. He's disenfranchised, ex-military. Even had a history of this kind of thing. All the evidence points to him, and there is an overwhelming case against him. He says, "Get Jack Reacher." Like I said, this crime has the media circus swirling, and even the transient badass like Reacher sees the news, and he has sworn to this killer that, well, that'd be too much. Rosamund Pike plays the lawyer defending the mass murderer against her DA father. Things occur. Reacher begins helping the defense after checking out the evidence. He smells a frame. Rosamund suffers a bit in the film from the Sandra Locke and Josie Walls syndrome. When you have Josie Walls in a movie, do you really crave anything else? She isn't bad. She's just doesn't have the part, you know? Between Cruise and Werner Herzog. Now I love films like this. Trail mysteries where each breadcrumb leads to the next. And then, eventually, people are being killed in Werner Herzog's fucking presence. Because Werner Herzog is one of the scariest men ever. God bless him. He's our Erich von Stroheim, and I adore him. People remain mysteries. Yes, that's what it says. People remain mysteries when they're tough, and when you hear the story Herzog tells about his character origin. It is so awesome. It's a classic McQuarrie criminal bedtime tale, and I can't get enough of these. It isn't an operatic as Kaiser Sose, but you can bet Kaiser likes this Zek style. If you love Parker movies, this is a movie and a character of that kind of determination. Jack Reacher is made of that pulp, and Macquarie knows that pulp. Cruise smartly puts himself in Macquarie's hands, and the film that comes out of that has a wonderful swagger. Oh, and Robert Duvall is a retired Marine with a shooting range that Reacher ends up at. And Duvall is totally in the Chef Dan George character and color mode. He's awesome, just like Chief Dan George wasn't awesome in Josie Walls. Now I know, I've brought up the outlaw Josie Walls, so I assume you have to want to know what's better. Well, Outlaw Josie Walls. Duh. By miles, because that's my favorite Eastwood Western. Love it. And to have a film set in the current world that evokes that iconic man of mystery, the ally angle you hope is out there, maybe putting a few wrongs right the wrong way. This film is called Jack Reacher. And after you see it, you'll know the name and what it stands for.